They called it a necessary decision. They called it the price of peace. But history never asked the people who paid that price. In the final days of the war, the world was already exhausted. Cities were broken, families destroyed, and hope was hanging by a thread. Behind closed doors, powerful men sat around polished tables, maps spread in front of them, red circles marking targets. What they discussed that day would not only end a war, it would redefine fear itself. The public story was simple. The war had to end quickly. A single, decisive action would save millions of lives. That was the explanation given to the world. Newspapers printed it, leaders repeated it, textbooks memorized it, and over time, it became truth. But truth is often what survives, not what actually happened. Long before the decision was announced, scientists had already unlocked something terrifying, a weapon so powerful that even its creators feared it. They knew once it was used, the world would never go back. War would no longer be about armies facing each other. It would be about cities disappearing in seconds. Still, the plan moved forward. On a quiet morning, when most people were starting their day without any idea of what was coming, the sky above Hiroshima changed forever. A flash brighter than the sun tore through the air. In an instant, streets vanished, shadows burned into walls. Thousands of lives ended before they even understood what was happening. Those who survived wished they hadn't. History books often stop there, calling it an unfortunate but necessary moment. What they don't show are the days after. The silence, the confusion, people walking with burned skin hanging from their bodies, searching for family members who were already gone, water poisoned, air heavy with death. And yet, even that wasn't enough. Just days later, the same decision was repeated over Nagasaki. By then, the message was clear. This was no longer about ending a war. This was about demonstrating power, absolute, unquestionable power. Behind the scenes, documents reveal something unsettling. There were alternatives. The enemy was weakened. Surrender was already being discussed. Some military leaders even questioned the need for such destruction, but their voices were drowned out by something stronger than strategy. Fear. Fear of losing dominance, fear of future rivals, fear that if this weapon was not used now, someone else would use it first. So the decision was justified, not morally, but politically. After the explosions, the world watched in shock. Some celebrated, some stayed silent, and some asked questions that made others uncomfortable. Were civilians the real target? Was the destruction meant to end a war, or to start a new era where fear would maintain order? Those questions didn't make it into textbooks. Instead, a cleaner version of history was created, one where suffering was summarized in numbers, one where long-term damage was ignored, one where survivors were quietly forgotten. For years, people exposed to the aftermath suffered in silence. Illnesses appeared without explanation. Children were born with conditions no one wanted to talk about. Entire generations lived with consequences they never chose. When scientists tried to warn about long-term effects, their reports were classified. When journalists pushed too hard, access was removed. Questioning the decision became dangerous, not legally, but socially. You were labeled unpatriotic, disrespectful, a threat. So, most people stopped asking. What makes this dark truth even harder to accept is not just the weapon itself, but how easily humanity accepted its use, how quickly mass destruction was normalized, how fast the narrative replaced reality. Because once the world saw that cities could be erased in seconds, everything changed. Power was no longer measured by armies or borders. It was measured by how much destruction could be delivered at the push of a button. The war ended, but fear began. Decades later, leaders still reference that decision. Some call it a warning, some call it a lesson, but very few call it what it truly was, a turning point where morality took a backseat to dominance. History is often written by those who survive, not those who suffer, and in this case, survival came with control over the story. The dark truth behind this decision is not just about two cities or one war. It's about how easily truth can be reshaped when power decides what the world should remember. So when we ask whether it was justified, maybe we're asking the wrong question. The real question is this: if history can hide something this devastating behind words like necessary and victory, What else have we been taught to accept without question? And how many truths are still buried beneath the pages of history, waiting for someone brave enough to read between the lines?